If you run a towing or roadside assistance business and you're struggling to turn your calls into more profit, it might be because your dispatching is a little off. If you don't know how to handle objections, like when a customer says that your rates are too high or they can't wait that long because your ETAs are too high, you could be losing out on a ton of money. Most of the people that I deal with who are in need of towing or roadside assistance, they typically want a provider who is cheap, fast, and experienced. And most likely in that order. Most of the calls I get are people shopping around for quotes trying to find the best deal. Now, if a customer calls me for a quote and I just tell them, oh, that's going to cost $300, most likely they're just going to give me the old, I'll call you back. And like 99% of the time, they don't call back. Now, I've never worked for a large company and I've never formally been trained to dispatch. I continually hit six figures year after year using this exact script. I've just learned over the years that there's a specific series of questions that I like to ask in order to give a quote as quickly as possible. I need to be quick on the phone, especially when I'm busy. If I get a call while I'm in the middle of taking a credit card or loading a vehicle, that call could potentially be a few $100s, if not more. Some situations are different than others. There are times like when I'm in the middle of a winch out that I can't answer the phone right now. So in those situations, and I absolutely have to ignore the call, I'll send them a pre-generated text saying something like, hey, I'm on the phone with another customer right now. What can I help you with? I've got an iPhone, but I'm sure Android has the same feature where you can create a list of text message responses to reply with when you ignore someone's call. So at the very least, the caller will still get sent a voicemail. They'll also receive a custom text message asking what they need, and then hopefully I can still lock that job down. If I do take the call, using this script that I pretty much have memorized now, I can be off the phone in a couple minutes depending on how prepared the customer is. If the caller has the address ready along with the vehicle info like year, make, and model, then I can usually get them off the phone in about a minute. Alright, so here's my workflow. Let me know in the comments if you have a script you follow or if you'd like to add anything to mine. Now, each question that I ask is in a specific order and worded in a specific way for a specific reason. But if you've got a service call to get to or you need to get going, in a nutshell, these are the 5 questions I ask in order to get any lead a quote. What address is the vehicle located? What kind of vehicle is it? What is the problem you're having with it? And if it's towing, will it go into neutral? And what is the drop-off address? That's it. With the answers to those 5 questions, I can get the caller a quote and get them off the phone. Now, if you want access to this workflow, I'll leave a link in the description. Just so you know, the text is a little small, so you might want to try to recreate it or maybe put it in a different format that's more comfortable for you. Alright, sweet. So I think that's it. Let's jump in here. So first up we have, thanks for calling your company name, how can I help you? Thanks for calling Cashtows, how can I help you? Some companies just answer the phone,
Towing.
I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. I would always start out saying your company name and how can I help you? The reason I do this is because sometimes the line cuts out or there's a delay because of the call tracking software that I use. So I make my greeting long enough so that if the line does cut out, the customer can still hear someone is there.
Precision Towing? Hello?
Hello, is this a towing company?
Yeah, this is Precision Towing. How can we help you?
Well, you should have announced who you were, so never mind.
Some people are just difficult to deal with, so I try not to give them a reason to not use my service. So after I greet them, I expect them to request a service. My car's battery is dead, I need a tow, I locked my keys in the car, whatever. If I'm not connected to my Bluetooth, I'll just put my phone on speaker right away as soon as I answer. Because right away as soon as I answer, I'm pulling out my Google Maps and getting ready to enter the address. So while they requested the service, I've got my maps open and my very next question is, what address is the vehicle located? This is the very first question I ask because it doesn't matter what kind of car it is. It doesn't matter what the problem with it is. It doesn't even matter if the car can go into neutral or not. If the vehicle's not located in your service area, then most likely you're not going to provide the service. So any other question you have is nothing but a waste of time for you and the caller. Trust me, I've wasted a ton of time on the phone when I was new. I would ask what kind of car it is, what the problem is, and go through all these questions while going in neutral and like try to help them diagnose it over the phone. And then finally I'm like, okay, well, where are you located? Oh, I'm in Nebraska or Iowa. It's like, I'm not even near you. I can't even help you. I highly doubt anyone would pay you the rate you would need in order to make a profit on that call. Okay, so my exact words are, what address is the vehicle located? I don't say where are you located, because if they're not with their vehicle, then I really don't care where they are right now. I want to know where their vehicle is at. I also don't say where's the vehicle at, because that opens the door for them to start giving me directions and pointing out nearby landmarks. And if I'm not familiar with that area, then that's not going to help me, and it's just going to cause confusion and basically just cost time. And I don't like wasting time at all in this business. I specifically say what address because I'm trying to push them to find the exact address so I can type it in. I don't know where John's Barbershop off of Lexington next to PetSmart is. Now, if they're on the highway or they don't exactly know where they are, then I need the exact pin on the map, because most of the time, the customer is a little bit confused on exactly where they're located. I don't want any confusion or wasted time, so I just want the exact coordinates. I can't tell you how much time I've spent in my early days driving up and down the same highway looking for a customer, only to find out they were confused on their location and are on a completely different highway altogether. Now, there's a few ways you can request the customer's location. You can throw a location request link on your website so that when they click on it, you get an email notification of their coordinates. I like to keep them on the phone though and walk them through how to share their location, either by Google Maps or Apple Maps. Even if it turns into a little bit of a headache trying to get their location, I still follow through, because frankly, I don't trust their word unless they seem like very confident in where they are. After I ask what the address is, sometimes it might take them a little bit to look it up and find it. So if you haven't figured it out now, I don't like to waste time. So I immediately jump into the next question, which is, what kind of vehicle is it? There's really no special wordplay here. I need to know the year, make, and model. Once we figured out that they're in our service area, my very next question is, what kind of vehicle is it? Because nothing else really matters if I don't have the equipment to perform the service. I'm just trying to make sure it's a light-duty vehicle is all. If I've learned anything in this business, it's you cannot assume anything. Before I commit to any service, I want to make sure it's a regular passenger vehicle and not like a SpaceX rocket or something. If the vehicle is light duty, then I continue the workflow to whichever service they originally requested. Now, dispatching for roadside assistance is way easier than it is for towing. You don't have a drop-off address. You don't need to worry about if the vehicle goes into neutral or dollies or any of that mess. It's pretty cut and dry, especially if you're doing a fuel delivery or a lockout. Either the keys are locked in the car or they're not. Either you're out of fuel or you're not. But when it comes to like a tire change or a jump start, there's a few other questions I like to ask, and we'll just go through the roadside assistance questions now, and then we'll jump back over and finish the towing. Let's start it off with the jump start. My first question is do you know for sure that you need a jump start? I'm not trying to disrespect them or insult their intelligence or anything, but I deal with a lot of different people, and I don't know their level of knowledge with this kind of stuff. If they know for sure that they need a jump start, then I'll just continue with payment and it'll be a done deal. If they're kind of unsure, then I'll actually try to help them diagnose it over the phone. Because I don't want to have to go out there for a jump start and then have it fail and then they have to pay like a GOA or even the full rate. It makes me feel bad, you know? It's just easier to try to help them diagnose it over the phone. And even if you do get it running, I always make it a point to say, just if you need help in the future, save my number and give me a call. Hopefully this never happens again, but if it does, call me first, please. There's been countless times when a customer requests a service, but then they continue to work on their vehicle, or a good Samaritan stops by to help them. They get it running, and when I'm about 5 minutes away, then I get a phone call and they cancel. I just try to diagnose over the phone so I'm not wasting my time or my resources.
It's a Honda CR-V 2004.
You for sure have a dead battery?
I'm not sure. It's just turning over. Yeah, not starting at all.
You try putting it in neutral and try starting it?
Yeah, it's in neutral. It's a manual, so I just popped it down into neutral.
Oh, I see. I mean, it sounds like it's got power. I can hear it beeping in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just hate to send a guy out with a jump pack and then you still have the same issue, you know what I mean?
No.
You've got the clutch all the way in and everything?
Yeah, clutch is in and it's just like rolling over. Like here, I can try it again, but yeah, like all the lights are popping up. It's just.
Yeah, you've got power.
You might run your business a little different than I do mine, but I always take payment up front. Most of the time, the customer never calls to cancel, so then I show up, I can't find the vehicle, their phone goes straight to voicemail, and it's pretty difficult to request a GOA when the person ghosts you. So for me, like I said, it just got to the point where I quit taking cash. By taking payment first, I've got the money, and if they call to cancel, I can refund the amount. Like I said, if they just need a jump start, then I'll just continue and I'll get them a quote. Next up, we have the tire change. So when I get a call for a tire change, I always ask if they have a good spare. Of course, I don't want to drive all the way there to find out that their spare is flat or they might not even have a spare at all. A lot of these vehicles are manufactured with no spare. If the tire's flat, sure, I have an air compressor, but it's going to cost an additional fee if I have to use my air compressor. So if I take payment, run their card once, and then get there and find out that, there's going to be an additional fee for the air compressor, then I got to run their card again, and then there's 2 transactions, and it's just kind of a headache. So I'd rather just charge their card one time, get all the fees and the payments and everything out of the way first, and then when I show up, I can just perform the service. I don't have to worry about sitting on the side of the road, taking a credit card, or any of that. Right away, my next question is, do you have locking lug nuts? And if so, do you still have the key? If they don't have the key, well, I do still have my stripped lug nut remover, which will work just fine getting it off. But again, that's an additional fee and I'll have to run their card again. After I ask them if they have the key or not, if it's a car, I'll go and continue with the payment. If it's a truck, I'll also ask if they have the tools to lower the spare down. If the truck is around 2010 or older, a lot of times because of the salt used on the roads during Minnesota winters, the spare tire release mechanism will get rusted out and not work that well, or at all. In this case, I'll bring my Sawzall with, and I throw a 12-inch metal blade on it, and I just stick it up through the middle of the spare tire, and I'll cut the wire rope. But again, that does, cost an additional fee. If all the tire change questions check out, I can get them a quote for the tire change and only have to charge them once. All right, now let's move on to fuel delivery. I really don't get a lot of fuel deliveries. Maybe one every few months is all. But there again, I don't work for motor clubs either. So I assume you roadside guys are just kind of sweeping those up. Usually if someone calls for a fuel delivery, they know that they're out of gas. If their car shuts off while driving and they think they have fuel, then most likely they'll just request a tow before a fuel delivery. For a fuel delivery, I only need to know what octane. And then I can get them a quote and we'll be on our way. A lockout isn't much different. If someone requests a lockout, it's because they locked the keys in their car. Duh. The only question I have is, where are the keys located? I really don't care where they're located, but I ask anyway just to kind of feel them out a little bit and see if they act suspicious in any way. I'll typically take a picture of the vehicle with the license plate in the picture, along with their ID in case I get a phone call from the sheriff's office in the future. I have a standard lockout fee, and it doesn't really change between vehicles unless the car is like super expensive or I already know it's going to be difficult to get into. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the soft services. You'll notice that I didn't add Winch Outs. I didn't add a winch out service here because they're the most difficult to dispatch in my opinion, and I'm thinking I should make a separate video for that. I typically request pictures before I give a quote for any type of winching. I also ask how many feet from solid ground they are, but any answer I get over a few feet, I take with a grain of salt. Most people have no idea how much 20, 30, or even 100 feet actually is. You'll notice that rates for winching differ quite a bit from company to company. That could be hundreds of dollars or even thousands of dollars, depending on the situation. There's also a lot more liability when it comes to winching. You should also know your weights and how to calculate resistance when winching, but that's all going to have to be for a different video. So when I get a call for a winch out, I give the customer a price range. I basically tell them, I'm not there to see the situation or what's going on exactly. But with the information I do have, I feel comfortable giving them a rate between X and X amount. With all that information with the roadside, you should be able to get them a quote with those questions. Now with towing, there's going to be some additional questions here. Okay, so we answered the phone, we asked them what kind of vehicle it is. For towing, what is the drop-off address? So kind of like the first question about the vehicle's location, I needed an exact address or the name of a shop in order to get a quote. Really the only problem I ever run into with this question is if the person doesn't know where they want to take their vehicle. They sometimes ask for recommendations, but I personally don't care to give them any. For any reason that they have a bad experience with any place that I recommend, I feel that it'll reflect poorly on me and my business. So I just basically tell them that I can take it anywhere they want, I just need an address. Now, if we're towing it, we need to kind of know what's going on with it. So my next question is, what is the problem that you're having with it? I'm just trying to figure out if the vehicle is wrapped around a tree, missing a wheel, or it just simply won't start. But notice how I asked this question. I didn't ask, what's the problem with the vehicle? I specifically asked what problem they were having with it. It's happened to me a few times. I ask what the problem with the vehicle is, and the person replies with, I don't know what's wrong with it. Asking them in this way, it implies that there's some sort of mechanic and they should know what the issue is with the vehicle. I kept running into this small little issue, so that's why I now word it that way. I'm just kind of trying to diagnose it myself so I get a better idea of what I'm getting myself into. I also asked this to figure out if there's going to be any additional charges. Is the ball joint broken? Then I need to add additional fees for skates. Is it leaking fluids? I need to add additional fees for bio cleanup. Will the vehicle shift into neutral? And will all the wheels roll? Asking this question alone will answer a few questions for you so you don't have to waste time asking those other questions. Asking, will the vehicle shift into neutral, will keep you from having to ask if the vehicle has power. Most vehicles won't shift into neutral if there's no power. So if they can't shift into neutral, I know that there's going to be additional charges. Either I'm going to have to perform a neutral override, or I'm going to have to hook up my jump pack so that the vehicle gets power to shift it into neutral. Worst case scenario, I'll have to throw skates, but whichever option I end up going with, it's still going to be an additional charge. If the vehicle goes into neutral and the wheels all roll just fine, I know that the vehicle will go right up the bed and there's not going to be any time wasted. I rarely have any additional charges and have to run a cart a second time using this script. Just having these questions answered, I can give the caller an estimated time of arrival along with the total price, including taxes. My wording for every quote I give goes exactly like this. Okay, I can have a truck there in X amount of minutes, and your total will be X amount of money, which includes the cost of service, taxes, fees, and everything. Do you want to set this up? Now, there's a few things here I want to point out. First off, I give the ETA first. If I give the price first, which is usually surprisingly high, they totally ignore the ETA. By giving the ETA first, especially if it's under like 30 minutes, it gives them something to think about before they become fixated on the price. For example, first I tell them I can have a truck there in 15 minutes. Immediately they see value. 15 minutes? All right. And then I give them the price. I give them the price and make sure to say that the price includes taxes, fees, and everything. I want to make sure that they know that there are no hidden fees, and the price that I quoted them is the price that I charge them. $200 for a tire change?
You're insane.
You said you could be there in 15 minutes though? I kind of laugh to myself every time that happens. And then the last question I ask when I give them the quote is, do you want to set this up? I make sure to ask them this because when I didn't take payment up front and I was taking cash back in the day, I would give the quote and then the caller would say, okay, or give me a sounds good, and then just hang up. and then I would get a call 30 minutes later asking where the truck is at. I didn't know if sounds good meant, yep, send the truck, or thanks for the quote.
16 miles. 16 miles. Okay, give me 1 second. 16 miles. Maybe 190. 190? Yes, sir. Okay. You want me to go out there? Yes, sir. All right, sounds good. Okay. I'll be there in about 30 minutes. All right. Okay, thank you.
So to cut out any confusion, I asked specifically whether yes, they accept the quote and want to set up the service, or no, they don't. Taking payment up front also helps solidify the deal, and it removes a lot of the headaches throughout the entire job, really. Okay, so now that they have a quote, let's say they have some objections, right? Let's go over objections. Basically, the only two objections you're going to get is your ETA is too high or your price is too high. If my ETA is too high, let's say I'm super backed up and the ETA is going to be 2 hours, right? I always try to push unattended towing and explain that if they leave the key, they can take off and we'll get it picked up as soon as possible. They're already worried about the situation, and a breakdown never comes at a convenient time. If I can let them go and get to their appointment or whatever without having to wait for me, they see value in that. I also specifically ask them if they feel comfortable leaving the key. That way it pushes them to give me a yes or no answer as to whether we should still proceed with this call or not. I'm simply trying to push the sale through, that's it. If they have an objection that the ETA is too long, my script reads like this. I might be able to get someone there quicker, but I just can't make any promises right now. What I can do is offer you unattended towing, where I typically have my customers leave the key under the driver's floor mat, and then we can get it picked up as soon as possible and you can get out of there. Do you feel comfortable doing that? Okay, now what if their objection is the price is too high? Well, I typically like to blame our government. My script will read something like this. I might be able to knock off a couple bucks, but unfortunately with everything being so expensive these days, it's difficult for me to run as cheap as I used to. But it looks like I could give you a discount of X amount of dollars, which would bring your total to this amount. Does that work for you? There again, either a yes or no answer. I'm just trying to push the sale along, so if they say yeah, that'll work, then we can go along. If no, see you later. Now, if they agree to the ETA and the price, I continue on with the payment. Now, this is where your process might be a lot different than mine, but I'm just going to finish this call out just so you can kind of see the rest of my workflow. As soon as they say, yep, I want the service, I immediately say, okay, all I need is a card and I can get this dispatched for you immediately. Like I said, I used to take cash, but it just ended up causing me too many problems. So after their payment goes through, I ask if they'd like a credit card receipt. I like to send them one just so that they have my business name and phone number with their invoice. Now, if they want to get reimbursed by their insurance, I send them a separate itemized invoice created in Towbook. Their insurance company will need that information on the invoice in order for them to issue a reimbursement. And then last but not least, where are the keys? Oftentimes, the location of the keys will naturally get discussed before I even get to this question, but if not, now is when I ask. It's safe to ask this question after payment because if there is no key, its whereabouts should have already been discussed when I asked if the vehicle would go into neutral or not. Okay, so that's my dispatch script. Now, I realize that some of you may not be involved with the actual operation of the tow truck, and you might not know what a snatch block is, or skates, or dollies, or go jacks. Maybe you don't know the difference between a rollback, a flatbed, a wrecker, or a wheel lift. Well, I'm not going to go through any of that in this video, but a general rule of thumb I like to go by is if the wheels won't roll freely or the steering wheel is locked, add fees. That's really the easiest way to do it. Whether the operator decides to use dollies, skates, or any other equipment, it doesn't really matter. The point is that they had to use extra equipment, which would require extra labor, so you need to charge extra for that. For me, I just charge a flat rate. And of course, rates will vary quite a bit from company to company. Like I said, this is just the way I dispatch, and it's worked out well for me. If you're unsure what to charge, I encourage you to go over to Cashtows and check out the towing rate calculator. The towing rate calculator will be going through a little update here soon, but just stay tuned for that. But I will leave a link in the description. Also, if you're interested in starting your own roadside assistance business or you're wanting to get into the towing industry, jump over to Cashtows and check out Roadside Hustle. You'll get expert training and a complete set of professional tools to perform all your soft services like tire changes, jump starts, lockouts, and fuel deliveries. Guys, I'm telling you, this is the one roadside kit you need to get your hands on if you're serious about providing roadside services in your area. Just submit your company name and colors, and Roadside Hustle will provide you with a few different logos to choose from. From that, they'll create your marketing materials for you. You'll get business cards, a website, a Google business listing, and like a ton of other resources and value to get you started. And there's a payment plan, so you don't need to throw a bunch of money down in order to start this business. This is a 12-month payment plan, and it's only about $200 a month. Use promo code GIMME15 to get 15% off your purchase. I will say that the more populated of an area you target, the quicker you'll get your money back. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.